process. Pankava Surayava Surakritam Bhutahatyam Tataivaikam Naya Ginaya Mashtum Arhati Yatha as much as Pankena by the mud Panka Ambaha water mixed with mud Sudaya by wine Va either Surakritam impurity caused by the slight touch of wine Bhutahatyam killing of animals Tata like that Eva certainly Ekam one Na never Yagyai by the prescribed sacrifices Marshtum to counteract Arhati is worthwhile. Translation. As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. Purport. Ashwamedha yagyas or Gomedha yagyas, sacrifices in which a horse or a bull is sacrificed, were not, of course, for the purpose of killing the animals. Lord Chaitanya said that such animals sacrificed on the altar of Yagya were rejuvenated and a new life was given to them. It was just to prove the efficacy of the hymns of the Vedas. By recitation of the hymns of the Vedas in the proper way, certainly the performer gets relief from the reactions of sins, but in case of such sacrifices improperly done under inexpert management, surely one has to become responsible for animal sacrifice. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no possibility of performing the yagyas perfectly for want of expert brahmanas who are able to conduct such yagyas. Maharaj Yudhishthira therefore gives a hint to performing sacrifices in the age of Kali. In the Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended is the performance of Harinam Yagya, inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one should not indulge in animal killing and counteract it by performing the Harinam Yagya. Those who are devotees of the Lord never kill an animal for self-interest, and, as the Lord ordered Arjuna, they do not refrain from performing the duty of a kshatriya. The whole purpose, therefore, is served when everything is done for the will of the Lord. This is possible only for the devotees. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti and Parikshit Saint. Gauravani Pracharya Nirvishesha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Krika Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The verse was, as it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud, or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. This is the last statement by Yudhishthira Maharaj after he confronted Krishna or approached Krishna and told him that I do not want my throne. After fighting the battle of Kurukshetra and winning, he actually understands all this was not worth it. As we have discussed the previous weeks, Yudhishthira Maharaj loses, as Prabhupada explains, the spiritual vision, that all the sacrifices that were performed on his behalf, all the lives lost on his behalf, were actually desired by Krishna to be so. And therefore he takes all the responsibility on himself, and this responsibility seems to be overwhelming. To step over so many dead people's heads just to get on top of the world doesn't seem worth it to him. So we understand that he's not driven by by egoistic, materialistic desire to be king. Otherwise he would just accept it. Oh well, it's okay, they all had to die. At least they died for good cause, me being king. No, he understands that all this suffering in the world is not worth it. And he approaches Krishna with a few arguments. Similar to Arjuna bringing his doubts to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Yudhishthira is bringing his doubts to Krishna here as well. And he's saying that all these deaths, they are not bona fide actually. And there is no way to counteract it. There is nothing I can do to ask for forgiveness or to get relief from this terrible karma that I have accrued. This terrible karma that I have collected by killing so many people and being responsible for their deaths. Even being responsible for the death of Brahmins, women, children, my family members, my teachers, everyone who's dear to me basically, except my 4 brothers and my mother, they all died. Everybody died. And here in the end, the last statement he gives is that not even by sacrificing animals can I counteract all these terrible karmic reactions that I'm supposed to get. And we hear from different descriptions in the Bhagavatam that there are certain sacrifices in which an animal is killed as part of the sacrifice, which is supposed to counteract a lot of bad influence in this world. And it is said that in the Vedic days, this was the highest kind of yajna, the highest sacrifice that one could perform. Why? Because it was the most difficult, the most elaborate. Imagine the Brahmins had to be so good at what they were doing that they were bringing a dead animal back to life. Magic. So this was the test of perfection for the Brahmana. If the Brahmana is able to perform a sacrifice so perfectly, follow all the rituals, all the rules so perfectly, pronounce all the mantras without any thought, then he was able to bring a dead animal back to life. And this was, when that happened, it was understood, okay, all the bad things and all the bad influences in this world, they have been counteracted. And there are 2 types of this yajna which are supreme amongst all of them, which is the horse sacrifice and the cow sacrifice. Of course, if, as Prabhupada mentions, if it is done by people who are not qualified, very good, because they then killed an animal. So they themselves, the Brahmins themselves, would have committed a great sin. So we understand that performing sacrifices is not something cheap, it's not something simple. You can do mistakes. Bad things can happen to you when you do them wrong. And this was the way to worship Krishna in the previous ages. That means there was a lot of opportunity for people to commit mistakes, to commit offenses, to perform the service improperly and not get the result, either material gain or spiritual gain. So you had to be really fixed, you had to be really focused, you really had to know what you're doing. You had to prepare, you actually had to spend time studying. That's why we hear that all the Brahmin boys, for the first 12 years or something like this, of their schooling days, they would just learn Sanskrit grammar, nothing else. Just imagine, I mean, how many of you went for 12 years to school minimum? Let's say 10 years. And I mean, we have so many different subjects in school, isn't it? History, biology, geography, math, different languages, and it kind of makes it bearable, isn't it? That there's some variety. Because you don't like one subject, but you maybe like another, and so there is some different things going on. But imagine for 12 years, all day long, 6 hours every day, you just learn grammar. Just declinating words. I did the grave mistake of taking Latin classes in school because I thought it would be easier than learning French, which would have been the other requirements. And all we did was just declinate different words. It was so boring. It was so boring. Couldn't wait for it to be over. So looking back, I realized I'm not a Brahmin, because if I can't even learn Latin, what to speak of learning Sanskrit for 10 years. But that's what the Brahmins had to undergo. And then after they finished school, they would go to an elderly Brahmin and they would be trained in the art of performing sacrifices. So many different rituals you have to know. And the more important thing, you have to know when to do what and what order. You have to calculate the position of the stars. So you have to know astronomy and astrology as well. You have to be good at math. Nowadays, astrologers, they have a little computer program and they put in your date of birth and the place and whoop, everything is there. The proper Vedic Brahmins, they had to calculate this by hand, all these things. So they knew on which day which yagya to perform and how to do it. Which ritual to add, which one to leave out, and so on. So everything would have to be exactly to the time, place, and circumstance. So being a little honest with ourselves, who of you thinks they would be able to do this? I think we are all honest with ourselves. Why? Because in this age of Kali, the mental capacity of people is reduced. I mean, we already have a hard time concentrating now for 10 minutes. It's warm in here, traffic is outside, maybe we're a little hungry or a little tired, but we are thinking, oh, what do we have to do the rest of the day? So we can't even concentrate for a few minutes on something we hear. What to speak of learning for 10, 20, 30 years, proper performance of sacrifices and remembering everything by heart. We have a very nice Brahmin here in Berlin, a very good priest, Amara Prabhu. He really knows what he's doing, but he always has a little book with all the mantras and all the different things. In the Vedic days, this would have been considered cheating. They would have to know everything by heart. No books. We can't even memorize 10 verses from Bhagavad Gita, probably. Who knows 10 Bhagavad Gita verses? Very good. Who knows 20? Paul, I'm amazed. Try. Who knows 30 verses? Who knows the whole Bhagavad Gita by heart? That's the goal, right? Next year I'll ask you again. Who knows the whole Bhagavatam by heart? Huh? Shukadev. Yes. Yes, he knows. They knew everything. So, hearing all this, why am I saying all this? It makes us understand that, considering the previous ages, none of us would have been able to perform any type of sacrifice or any type of proper temple worship for Krishna. Because also the art of deity worship as we do it nowadays is very, very simplified compared to the old days. Also, so many mantras would have been used, yantras, mudras, so many different things. A proper pujari would be able to light the ghee lamp just with mantras. He would speak mantras, fire would come. Yes. Now we think, oh, this is some magician trick, but Brahmins used to be able to do these things. Because they knew the proper mantras and because they were so pure. Pure in their actions, pure in their thinking, pure in their desires. What do we think about? Oh, what can I enjoy today? Maybe before we go to Woodstock, we go a little shopping or a little sightseeing. Or maybe tonight I can go find some vegan burger somewhere to eat. Or what's on Netflix today? Maybe some nice movie to watch. So many desires in our heart. There's nothing wrong with it. That's okay. That's how we are. But that also means that 5,000 years ago, we would all have been disqualified to perform temple worship to Krishna. But still, here we are, chanting and dancing happily, worshipping the deity, serving Krishna. And why is that? Why do you think that is, that we are here and not somewhere else? Any ideas?
Influence of Maya.
The influence of Maya brings us to Krishna.
No, that we are not Datei in stage.
Yeah, it's Maya that we are not so pure, but why is it that we come to Krishna if we are so unqualified apparently?
Because we cannot get satisfaction in this world.
Yeah?
Yeah, and we try to find some better way to be happy.
We are frustrated in this world,
Yeah.
but we might just be as frustrated as everybody else who's not here, not serving Krishna. So why are we here? Yeah.
Because we're tired.
We're tired. Tired of what?
Suffering.
Tired of suffering. I'm telling you, around 5,400,000,000 people out there are also tired of suffering. But they do not come to the point that, oh, I want to serve Krishna to get relief.
They need more time.
They need more time. Yeah. More time for what?
For suffering.
But more time for what to happen?
To get the mercy of a pure devotee.
Thank you. I'm sure you knew as well. We are here by the mercy of the pure devotee and the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Because Lord Chaitanya appeared in this world not to finish all sacrifices. Lord Chaitanya never said, oh, no need for sacrifices. Yagya for old days. Nowadays, just be happy. Just be. Just exist. I wish you all well. No, Lord Chaitanya said, we need sacrifice. We need yagya. But what type of yagya? This should be easy. Sankirtan yagya, thank you. We need Sankirtan yagya, and it's important. He didn't say we need Sankirtan, he said we need Sankirtan yagya. We need to perform a sacrifice by chanting the holy name. And what is the sacrifice? What's to sacrifice in the holy name? We can just, isn't it? We just chant. What?
Spend our time.
Yes.
Listening. Like attention.
Breathing.
Our love.
Our love, yes.
Our breathing.
Our breathing, our precious life breath.
Yeah.
Our hearing.
Our hearing, yes.
And our also talking, speech.
Yes, thank you. We are sacrificing our precious breath of life. It is said that every person has a certain amount of breaths when they appear in this world. It's already determined at which breath you will die. Maybe somebody has 1,825,000. Maybe some person has 10 billion, who knows? But it's determined by how many breaths we take, how long we will live. So we use this breathing for chanting. So we are sacrificing some of our life for Krishna. We are sacrificing our time for Krishna. While we are chanting, we could do so many other things. More importantly, we might not just sacrifice some time for Krishna, but we might even sacrifice our attention for Krishna. It is said that besides the 10 offenses, there is one more offense to the chanting of the holy name, and that is being not attentive. And as Mahanidhi Swami says, there is one even greater offense than being inattentive while chanting the holy name. And that is to go on Facebook while chanting. There's a lecture that he gave at Radhakund a few years ago. He said there is a 12th offense to chanting the holy name. And that is to be on your mobile phone checking Facebook while chanting. Because that's what's going on. Our attention is just so limited that I need to distract myself while chanting, otherwise the sacrifice is too great, the suffering is too intense. Magazine while chanting. That's what he told his disciples. Because he saw them, flipping through some newspaper while chanting. You need to get your attention elsewhere, it's just too much. So it's a sacrifice. It's not easy. So we sacrifice our life, air, our energy, our time and our attention, but even more importantly, we should sacrifice our capacity to love. We should chant with feeling. If we just sacrifice our time and our energy, yes, we do something, but we don't really know what we are doing. Maybe we get some agyata sukriti, some unconscious spiritual benefit. Like when we do Harinam and the people, they say, oh, Hare Krishna. They get some benefit, but they don't really know what they're doing because they're not chanting with attention. When we chant with attention, we are basically performing a yoga process. Mantra chanting. We sit, we concentrate, we chant a mantra. But when we chant with feeling, that means we perform bhakti yoga. That means we are connecting with Krishna with our entire personality. Because we cannot chant with feeling and not be ourselves. You cannot pretend to feel something. Either you feel it or you don't. Either you feel happy or you feel upset. When we pretend to be happy and we are not, we know this feels strange. We are not real. So either you love somebody or you don't. And when we have some feeling of attachment, some feeling of attraction, some feeling of gratitude, some feeling of love, or some whatever feeling we have, we should chant with that feeling. Maybe sometimes we have a feeling of sadness, or a feeling of anger, or disappointment, or loneliness, or joy. Whatever feeling we have, we can chant with that feeling. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is teaching us this in the Sharanagati prayers. When he is meditating on his very humble position in this world, being so attached to his wife and children, to his material fame and wealth, that's how he's praying. My Lord, I'm so attached. I'm such a materialist. I'm so unqualified to serve you. He becomes very humble and very destitute and very sad. And then with that chant, with that feeling, he approaches Krishna. Therefore, my Lord, please save me. And then, through more prayers, he describes how Krishna is so wonderful that he is saving his devotee, and he becomes ecstatic, and he starts to describe, oh my Lord, you are so wonderful, you are so great, and I'm so happy that I'm allowed to serve you. And he becomes more and more ecstatic until finally the last prayers in Sharanagati is just an expression of ecstasy. So he's going through sadness, gratitude, attachment to ecstasy. So that shows us that all kinds of feelings that we have, we can connect them to chanting. We can chant with that feeling and connect ourselves as we are, as a real person, to Krishna. Why do you think we're reading Nectar of Devotion in the morning? It's a very elaborate description of all feelings that we find in this world and how they connect to Krishna. And of course this is not cheap. We cannot just pretend and say, oh, now I'm ecstatic, so let me chant with ecstasy. Prabhupada says, work first, samadhi later. First we have to sacrifice. Work means sacrifice. First we have to do something. We have to give our energy, we have to give our full attention. And whatever little feeling we give to Krishna, and then something will happen in our heart. Then the attachment to chanting will come. And then the real chanting starts. So chanting the holy name can be a process, but it's also the goal. It can be an activity that we do to purify our heart, as Lord Chaitanya explained. But when we do purify our heart a little bit, and we do become a little bit more enthusiastic, a little bit more alive in Krishna consciousness, then that's not the end, that's the beginning. That's when we start to really use all this spiritual energy, this attachment, and serve Krishna with it, and chant the holy name with it. And that's what Sankirtan Yagya or Harinam Yagya means. You give everything. You don't keep anything for yourself. So Lord Chaitanya did not come to this world and say, no more sacrifices. He said, only one sacrifice, Harinam Yagya. And because he said we should only do this one sacrifice, he did one more wonderful thing. He immediately qualified everybody to perform it. No more previous qualification required. Everybody is admitted. Everybody is allowed. No matter where you come from, what you're good at, what you're bad at, what your attachments are, how materialistic you might be, how much in tamaguni you might be. It doesn't matter. Even a perfect yogi can chant. The worst and the best can chant. Everybody can chant. He even made the animals chant. So what to speak of us? So he created this type of worship for Krishna, which is so wonderful that we can perform it on any level that we are at. We can be very superficial or go very deep. It just depends on us. And because it is so easy to approach, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And anyone becomes the devotee of Krishna just by performing the sacrifice. There's no more requirement to study Sanskrit for many years, be proficient in so many things, learn the mystic arts, be pure in our heart. Even that is not required. Even purity is not required to begin chanting. If you want to keep chanting, then we should get there, and we will get there by chanting properly. But to begin this process, to begin chanting the holy name, nothing is required. When the devotees from Bengal went to Jagannath Puri to visit Lord Chaitanya for the annual Ratha Yatra festival one year, they asked Mahaprabhu, who is a devotee? We are not sure. Who is actually a devotee? And Mahaprabhu said, the person who chants the holy name with love in his heart without stopping. Continuously. Who chants with love in his heart continuously. The devotees went home and they were thinking about it and were like, so none of us is a devotee. Are we not devotees? We find these type of devotees very rarely. There's maybe a Bhattacharya in Hebrew, maybe 4 or 5 others, but what's with the rest of us? Are we left out? And they got a little upset. So the next year when they came back, they asked Mahaprabhu again. I know you gave us an answer last year, and it was a very nice answer, but we are still not really sure. Who is a devotee? And Mahaprabhu said, the person who tries to chant the holy name without offenses, he is a devotee. So the devotees became all very ecstatic, because they could identify with that. Yes, we are not perfect, but we are trying. And then they went home, and during the year they thought, okay, that's us, but what's with all the other people? Do they have a chance? What's with them? Do you have to be already so fixed in your desire to serve Krishna to be a devotee? So the third year they came to Mahaprabhu and said, okay, my Lord, you explained now that somebody who chants with purity and love in his heart, he's your devotee. And somebody who's just trying to chant without offenses, he's also a devotee. But who is a devotee? Who is a devotee? And who knows what Mahaprabhu answered in the third time? Yeah.
Everyone did chant one time?
Yes.
The holy name?
Anyone and everyone who chants even once the holy name, knowingly or unknowingly, he is a devotee of Krishna. Everybody who even unconsciously says, oh Krishna, oh Ram, oh Govinda, oh Jagannath, oh whatever. Krishna has unlimited names. Krishna immediately becomes, oh, here's somebody. He called me, yes. Hello. Finally, I've been waiting for you. And then this person might still take lifetimes to become serious, but Krishna's attention is very little. Krishna explains that for the materialist, for the person who's not interested in spiritual progress, he resides in this person's heart as the super soul. He's witnessing and he's giving permission for this person's desires to be fulfilled if the karma allows. And that's all he does. He's a very passive observer. He doesn't intervene. But he says that once the person, only one time, said Krishna, I want to be yours. It is said that the super soul disappears from this person's heart. I see now a lot of doubtful faces. I thought the super soul is always in the heart. He says, I personally appear in this person's heart in my form as Govinda. It's the three bent form plane. And I take a personal interest in this person's life. And I intervene to bring this person closer to my lotus feet. So if a person just once, with some conviction, some faith, some tiny bit of faith, says, Krishna, maybe I want to be yours. I'm not sure. Maybe, if it doesn't hurt. Krishna immediately takes an active role in this person's life. And usually the first thing he does is arrange a meeting with the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, so that this person can become more fixed up in his desire to serve him. So Krishna is very, very eager for our tiny endeavor, our tiny yagya, and this yagya can mean for one person to just say the holy name once. That's the beginning of his sacrifice, of his spiritual journey. And Krishna from that point on takes an active role. He's not just a passive observer anymore. And that's why it is so important to Lord Chaitanya and so important to Srila Prabhupada that we perform the Sankirtan Yagya not just for ourselves but for the benefit of others. That we somehow or other, or as Prabhupada says, by hook or by crook, which has sometimes been misused, but by hook or by crook we make somebody chant the holy name. As Lord Nityananda would walk around, he would say, chant Krishna, chant Govinda, and people were like, no, leave me alone. And he said, no, chant. And they were like, nah, go away. And sometimes Nityananda would say, I will get naked and roll on the ground in front of your house and scream until you chant. And all the neighbors will look at you and think, what kind of madman do you have as a guest? And you will be so embarrassed of me, so you better chant. And he did that sometimes. He jumped like a madman in front of someone's house, chanting, until the person finally says, okay, Govinda, and says, Haribo! And he went to next door. Started the whole thing over again. So by any means possible, any means necessary, Nityananda made people chant. That's why we go out on the street, that's why we perform Harinam. That's why we celebrate Ratha Yatra on the street. We could also do Ratha Yatra here in the temple. You can just go through the temple a few times with the deities and be all very happy and have a fun, have a nice time, have a nice festival, and that's it. No, Krishna comes on the street and the devotees come with him and they chant the holy names. People hear the holy name and maybe even chant themselves. Why? Because that's the beginning. Or for some maybe the next step. Maybe they have begun already somewhere else. Maybe the meeting that we have with a person when we go out has been already step 10 or 20 in this person's spiritual development. And we should see ourselves as Krishna's instrument. Why? Because as I just said, Krishna is arranging these things personally. There is somebody who has some tiny bit of a desire, some tiny bit of faith. So Krishna is arranging for us to meet this person now. So we should be very much aware of our responsibility. We are Krishna's instrument, we are Krishna's representative when we are out in the street, distributing books, doing harinam, meeting somebody in our role as a devotee. Because Krishna might have had his hands in this meeting. So what do we do with it now? Do we use it for our own benefit, our own sense gratification? Or are we aware that, oh, now I'm Krishna's instrument, so let me work, let Krishna work through me. So we should be very careful in how we serve Krishna, very attentive. Always be aware that Krishna is there with us every step, in every moment, helping us, looking at us, supporting us, answering our prayers, fulfilling our spiritual desires. Do you maybe have any questions, comments, doubts, criticism?
As we see sometimes senior devotees, they are making devotional service and they are very happy and they are chanting after this and they are being in ecstasy. But sometimes, for example, as me, when I do some service and the next day I'm feeling tired and I can't chant at all, or I chant and I can't concentrate on holy name. And then my question is, what do I wrong? Maybe it's some mistake in consciousness.
There are two things. One, as we discussed I think last time, we have to find a balance. And once we have balance, it is easier to perform devotional service more steadily. But then also when you feel the connection to Krishna while you're performing service more intensely, it just gives you so much energy. So sometimes we might chant and we have to concentrate. And it's we use a lot of our energy in trying to serve Krishna, and then we're exhausted. But when we let go a little bit of this controlling mood, or I have to control my ecstasy by how intensely I serve Krishna, but we just do it to please Krishna, whatever the result is. If I get some feeling of joy or not, I just do it for Krishna's pleasure. At that moment, usually we become inspired. Something happens, Krishna is reciprocating. As long as we think we are the controller in our service, I can control my ecstasy by how intensely I serve Krishna, it becomes very heavy. Because we are on our own, with our own energy. But when we let go and just let Krishna do his magic, then we become inspired and energetic. And then we can become more steady. So it's important to let go a little bit of this desire to have some result immediately. And again, as I said, sometimes we have those days